Now, her story is now resurfacing amid a sexual assault and sex trafficking lawsuit against WWE co-founder Vince McMahon. A federal investigation also now underway investigating McMahon. And to talk more about this, we want to bring in Josephine Riesman, author of Ringmaster, Vince McMahon, and the Unmasking of America. Josie, thank you for being with us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
I know you've spent a great deal of time researching the history of McMahon, even starting with the sexual abuse he allegedly suffered as a boy. Can you tell us more about that? And with the context you have, what is your reaction to this latest lawsuit?
Sure. Vince McMahon, when he was a boy in North Carolina, allegedly, according to Vince, was sexually abused by his mother. Now, I have to qualify that because he walked that statement back. But that is something that is prominently in the public record about what Vince McMahon has said about himself, was this implication that possibly his mother sexually abused him. And he does seem to have been physically abused by his stepfather. And without getting too much into the psychology of abuse, you can see in a lot of these allegations claims that Vince was abusive in sexual and, in many cases, physical ways. And these allegations do seem to form a pattern with other allegations that have been put out there about Vince in the past over the decades. And I have to say my first response was to be shocked at the details, but not surprised based on the long chain of allegations that have followed Vince McMahon for the past few decades, his 4 decades as the supreme person in professional wrestling.
Yeah, what potential pattern have you been tracking over the years? How would you characterize it?
Well, there have been allegations going back as early as 1992 when the first female referee of the World Wrestling Federation, Rita Chatterton, came forward and said that Vince had raped her in 1986. There was a tanning salon employee in Boca Raton in 2006 who claimed that Vince McMahon assaulted her sexually. And of course, there are all of the claims that were reported in the summer of 2022 that caused Vince McMahon to step back, although he retained financial power and then brought himself back as the executive chairman. So what you see is a lot of allegations that Vince McMahon uses his power and his both financial power and sometimes his physical power to allegedly violate women and also not necessarily sexually, but violate the rights of men, allegedly, and sometimes demonstrably. He's been very exploitative in his labor practices. And this is a set of allegations that seem to all, as allegations, form a picture of power and exploitation that we're still going to start seeing unfold as the federal probe into Vince McMahon continues.
And Josie, speaking of men, we also know you spoke with the brother of a ring boy who committed suicide after allegedly suffering sexual abuse within the WWE. What can you tell us about that?
Sure. There was a boy who grew up into being a young man named Tom Cole. And when he was a teenager, he had been part of the World Wrestling Federation's so-called Ring Boy program, which was much like a ball boy program for some other sport, something where young boys would be invited to do odd jobs. And they got to take pictures with the wrestlers and get paid in cash. And what seems to have emerged, according to the allegations Tom Cole made in 1992 when he came forward after these things he claimed happened, the allegation was that there was a massive sexual abuse ring targeting young boys within the World Wrestling Federation. And it's a very complicated story because Tom Cole rescinded his story after a legal meeting at a legal office between him and Vince, where Vince allegedly talked about his own the abuse that he suffered as a youth, and then sort of used leverage to put Tom Cole in a position where he just said, I want my job back. I'll drop the charges. So it got complicated, but there were multiple people who were prepared to come forward and say that the Ring Boy program had been a culture of underage abuse. And the story fizzled allegedly, according to Tom Cole's brother, Lee Cole, allegedly part of that was Vince McMahon intimidating witnesses and rather victims, I should say, intimidating victims. And it's a very complicated story, hard to summarize in a sound bite, but that itself was an allegation that there was a culture of sexual exploitation and abuse at WWF, now WWE, and it's hard not to ignore those patterns.
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.